Historically, coaching was really only accessible to the top 1 to 3% of people in an organization. With an AI coaching solution, you could really get that out to the entire organization.
Hello, and welcome to the Innovation Exchange, a Workday podcast. This is the show where we explore partner-built innovations that are giving Workday customers more value, more confidence, and more ways to drive performance and growth across their organizations. I'm your host, Mark Woolen, and today I'm excited to talk with Darrin Murriner from Cloverleaf. Darrin's rewritten the rules on team development with an app that provides AI-powered coaching inside everyday work tools like Slack, Teams, and Workday. All right, welcome, Darrin. Let's get right down here to kind of, where this came from. Like, tell us a little bit now, like, if you go back to the beginning of Cloverleaf, your background. I mean, you've been leading teams for your entire career. What was the inspiration for your experiences for this application and for Cloverleaf, and then how the solution came to be about?
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I have a co-founder, Kirsten Moorfield, and we work together at in a digital ed agency. And one of the things that was really clear to us is that we worked in these small cross-functional teams where we had designers, creative directors, and the output, the value that we created for our organization was really all centered around how people work together to create that value, right? Take their ideas, their skill sets, their past experiences, and put that together in a 6 to 8 week time period to create something magical on the back end for the clients. And, we'd put a designer with a creative director, and it was a grand slam home run, right? A video on cloud security would bring a tear to your eye. And the client loved it, and they, signed up for 5 more videos, and it was great. And we'd put that same designer with a different creative director, and it just imploded, right? I mean, people were unhappy. They were angry with each other. The clients were unhappy with the outcomes. And, I think that same experience happens, across the world, right? And I think it highlighted the need for technology to really bring some insight and discovery to the interpersonal connections and the way that we work together. I call it the hidden behavioral layer of how work gets done. And that really was the genesis of it.
Does it help actually reduce the amount of spend, if you will, that goes into the whole assessment process itself?
Historically, coaching was really only accessible to the top 1 to 3% of people in an organization. And it was very expensive at that. For the same amount of money that you were spending to reach that top 1% of people in the organization, with an AI coaching solution, you can really get that out to the entire organization. And I think giving tools like, whether it's assessments or it's AI coaching, into the hands of frontline managers, leaders, or frontline employees, the return on that is significant. And I think especially when you think about that at scale.
Let's go to the coaching part a little bit more here. Like you talk about putting in the hands of frontline workers. There's almost kind of this democratization of coaching that you're empowering here. Like just day to day, like how often does the Cloverleaf coach actually pop up?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a fine line between being intrusive, right, and being valuable. And one of the great things for how we've built our product is really put, again, that employee at the center of the experience. So they get to really configure exactly the way they want to interact and how often and, who they're getting coaching on. So that one, it's a consent-based model, so I think that allows us to really kind of overcome challenges, from a data privacy standpoint, et cetera. But I think, too, how employees work, and I think this is a huge lesson that I think a lot of organizations are having to learn the hard way right now as we really force people back into the office, and we do a lot of things that kind of are creating a one-size-fits-all approach for our employees, is that, hey, what I know is our salespeople, they primarily work in email, right? Because they're interacting externally with, customers, prospects, et cetera. But our product and engineering teams, they live in Slack every day, right? Or Microsoft Teams. And so
Totally.
we built integrations so that we can come to people in the tools that they want to use. And in the same way, we give them the ability to configure that experience so that they get to choose how and when they interact with the product. We're going to give them great suggestions regardless, and then they get to pick and choose, how often or how frequently or where they're engaging with us.
Super cool. Now, so the assessment piece you talked about, there's the coaching, and I love those different examples of, whether it's on the go-to-market side, whether it's on the R&D side, there's a place for this, meeting people where they work. But how does the actual Cloverleaf Connect app, how does it tie all this together?
Largely because of the digitization that's happened, over the last decade or two, there's a lot of data that lives in remote systems or core systems like Workday. And how do we tap into that to really customize and personalize that coaching experience for individuals? So, some of the places that we look at is employee engagement. So tools like Peakon, and how do we access that information to leverage, more context about the individual and how they're working, or the leader of that team and how they're working. Feedback and performance management, right? So whether it's lightweight one-on-one type conversations, or it's, actual annual or, semi-annual performance reviews, there's just a wealth of information that lives in all of these systems. And so we really want to make sure that we're drawing those connections. And that's one of the beautiful things about, the Built on Workday app and our ability to really kind of build on top of, all the great tools and resources that exist with Workday, is it allows us to not only tap into that, but it also allows us to build on top of the features and capabilities that exist there, so that we can bring that personalization, we can bring that coaching to processes and to the places where employees need that information.
Yeah, as you're bringing like all of that right to the employees in the immediacy of where they work, I'm kind of curious here. I think about like the ways a lot of us maybe grew up in many organizations, going to, general training sessions. You go to these skills or other related workshops. Does what you're doing replace those training sessions? Does it replace those workshops?
We hear that a lot, especially on the coaching side, right? Where it's kind of like, hey, we do a lot of work with coaches and consultants, and we're partners with them. And we're partners with them because we're not there to replace them. We're there to really enhance and accelerate the work that they're doing. And whether it's coaches or it's, facilitators or internal learning and development professionals who might be, either standing up in front of a room and delivering a lot of really great content, or, they're delivering it digitally. We're not there to replace that. And I think there is that additional context, the experience that can happen in those different contexts are really important. I think the biggest challenge, though, with that traditional model is the forgetting curve. And, within the first day, you forget about 70%. Within 24 hours, you forget about 70% of what you learn. Yeah. And by the end of a week, you've forgotten well more than 90% of what you learned in those sessions. And so for us, it's really about the sustainment strategy, right? So whether you're a coach and you are using our products to help enhance the coaching experience, or you're a learning professional who are doing programmatic type work, having a digital solution that comes alongside those tools, where employees are working, really helps sustain that learning so that it's not, the forgetting curve isn't as steep. And, more importantly, they can apply it at the point in times where they need it. And we all know that learning is most effective when people have an opportunity to actually practice it, right? It's not just theory. It's specific to the people that they're leading or specific to the people that they're engaging with on a daily basis.
Hey there! If you are loving these partner innovation stories, be sure to check out the Workday Marketplace. That's where you can explore partner and Workday-built apps, templates, integrations, and agents to help you do more with Workday. Visit marketplace.workday.com for more. And now, back to the show.
I want to go like maybe a level deeper here. We talked about how Connect brings it all together. But again, this is AI powered. So go a little further and a little deeper if you don't mind. How is the coaching actually AI powered?
We take all that data, and I think one of the big key differentiators that we have is really the behavioral context, right? So we know people at a really deep, we have a deep understanding of how they work and how they like to work with other people. And being able to layer that into the context of these other components. And so I'll give you a couple of simple examples. And I even used this morning. I have a team where we're changing some roles, and we have 3 people who are really undergoing a pretty massive change in their work life, right? So maybe half of what they were doing no longer is a key part of their roles and responsibilities. And it's creating a lot of friction and a lot of challenge, right? Because I think that uncertainty, the fear, talking about a word that we used earlier in this conversation, is real and it's tangible and it's impacting, not only their experience at work, but it's also affecting their ability to actually do the work that they're doing today, let alone the change that's happening, right, in a meaningful way. And so I was able to just go into Cloverleaf and say, hey, I want to coach this leader through this change in a way that respects the needs and the challenges that these 3 people are feeling and experiencing. And I was able to ask a simple query. One, it knew all of us, right? So it was able to pull in the right people. It understood that those 3 people reported to this particular leader. And then it gave a very specific 3-week strategy on which included reminders. It included role play opportunities. It included very specific strategies to each of them. And a good example might be one of them needed repetition,
cool.
and they needed that information delivered in a certain way.
Yep.
Another one needed it to be more collaborative, right? And so it gave these different strategies that allowed the leader, and then we were able to communicate about that, right? We shared that coaching plan. And we were able to talk about, hey, there's a very clear strategy here that can help you lead these 3 people through this change in a way that avoids a lot of this unnecessary struggle.
So Darrin, like you're going somewhere, you're hinting at something right now that for me, just in my own career, has been actually kind of it's been a fascinating area of like growth and learning. And I'll go back like early in my career, one of the first coaching sessions I ever got, part of the process we went through was like doing the Enneagram. And it was fascinating. I guess at a personal level, it was fascinating also because you learn about your teammates in a certain kind of, let's just say a new way that also made the working with them a little bit more navigable. I'm curious, when you get down to those personality types, like the example you just gave, like needs more frequent kind of like, engagement. How does the solution recognize those individual personalities? And how does it actually capitalize on that and use that knowledge?
And yeah, I mean, you're right. I think the traditional model is like, hey, I know I'm an Enneagram 7 or I know I'm an Enneagram 8. And, there's a little bit of nuance to that you might understand, but you're like just scratching the surface. And I think one of the really great things about what we've done is we've taken each of those individual traits and characteristics and broken them down to literally thousands of data points. And we can connect those data points to very specific challenges that people are facing in their day-to-day work life. And by having access to all of that information and looking at the individual context and the people involved and the power dynamics and the past feedback and experiences that they've had with each other, right?
Yep.
There's just a richness and a depth to that goes so far beyond just like, I know I'm an Enneagram 7 and Mark, you're an Enneagram 8, and I kind of understand, how to navigate that. But most of the time we don't know that, right? We don't know that nuance, and we definitely don't know that about the other people. And I think we just make that a really easy process. You can ask a question. We're gonna walk you through, hold your hand, give you a plan. And it's all very iterative and interactive. And again, it is synced with the tools that you're using. So we're sending reminders in your calendar. We're giving you opportunities to engage with each other in a way that feels natural to your day-to-day work life.
This notion of like being natural to your day-to-day work life, that is as you just mentioned, your calendar, your email, Slack, Teams, it is there whenever, wherever you're doing your work, and it is needed. I am curious though, like, if you look at the app that you've built, like, on the Workday platform, how does the in-app functionality you built on the Workday platform compared to what exists, in email, in Teams, in Slack, and all these other environments where people are also doing their work?
Yeah, so some of it is repetitive, right? I mean, some of the things that we've built inside of Workday also lives inside of our application. But what it really has allowed us to do is just layer that behavioral coaching layer on top of existing functionality. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So feedback in core HR, or there's also other places where you can give feedback, in the performance management side of Workday. And we just layer it on top of there. So when you go to give feedback, and you say, hey, I want to give feedback on Mark, we're going to immediately pull in your feedback style, right? How I'm naturally wired to give feedback and how you like to receive feedback.
Yep.
Then you're going to go in, you type in the thing that that you're trying to give feedback on, and we give you coaching on that. We say, hey, here's how you're likely, here's how Mark wants to receive that. You did a good job of this, but maybe make sure you start with, an affirmation at the beginning of that. And
Okay.
hey, I see the correction, can we go a step further? Here's some additional things that you might want to consider adding. So the nice thing is that is capability that only exists at the point in time where you're giving feedback. And so if you're using Workday, right, to deliver that feedback, and again, whether that's lightweight for a weekly one-on-one, or it's something that you're writing up for the end of the year, there's just a richness that we can layer on top of how people are engaging with Workday that just takes it to the next level.
Let's take a step back from this. Like, as a former product person myself, just like all of a sudden build an app. The user stories, understanding the personas. I mean, there's so much that goes into this, and I'm curious to know, like, from your perspective, tell us a bit about the journey that you went on, your team went on, in terms of developing this app, outlining the solution, and embedding kind of an AI coach into the Workday platform. What was that like?
The good news is we spent, almost 7 years building an AI coach. So there was a lot of really hard work that went into that over the years, even when it wasn't cool to have AI solutions in the enterprise. So that was the first big challenge. I think the second challenge that I think we were able to easily kind of move through was just a clear understanding of how to use the underlying development and deployment tools inside of Workday, right? And because we didn't have a ton of experience, we're a smaller organization, we weren't using Workday at the time, right? So there wasn't a ton of experience we could draw from, right, to build that. And one of the nice things about the Workday partner ecosystem is that you've got amazing breadth and depth of partners who have experience building, for their clients, maybe for themselves as well, to deploy on the Built on Workday marketplace. And we were able to tap into those resources and really say, hey, how can we come up to speed quickly on this? We engaged one of those partners and said, hey, help upskill us in the area of development here. And that worked so well that we, partnered on, different even internal competitions at Workday to not only develop and deploy, but also really kind of work to enhance our skill set and the knowledge of our team so that they knew how to do that. And then I think the other piece is really just, over the years, we've had a lot of really great interactions with Workday customers who have said, hey, I would love it if we could incorporate Cloverleaf in these different places, right? So over the years, we've really been compiling what those use cases are. And so we really had, I think, a pretty clear vision for where we could apply AI coaching in a lot of different contexts inside of existing Workday functionality.
Thank you again. Thank you for being an incredible partner to work with. Thank you for taking these early first steps with us to bring your expertise, your knowledge to Workday's customers and to our Workday users so that they can actually get the kind of coaching they need to be not merely more successful and more effective, but I think happier employees as well. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And Darrin, thank you for joining me today as well. It's been an excellent, very insightful conversation. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
My guest today has been Darrin Murriner, co-founder and CEO of Cloverleaf. To learn more about their Assess, Coach, and Connect app and how it works with Workday, please visit marketplace.workday.com. If you have feedback, guest suggestions, or if you just want to say hello, please connect with us on social media using all of the usable social accounts. And until next time, goodbye.